Nice to see you all here. And let me introduce myself, just a few words. My name is Mariaa. I work as a business analyst at OWOX. I have more than 3 years working with e-commerce and analytics, and I'm really analyst fan. What about you? What's your experience? For how long you've been working with analytics and data? More than 2 years, more than 3 years? Okay, who has been doing that like more than 5 years? Okay, maybe I should ask you some questions after that. Who works for agencies? Okay, and who works on the client side? Okay, and if we're talking about your best clients or your typical clients, what are business domains they're from? Who works with travel? Okay. Is there anyone who works with retail, e-commerce? Okay, and the rest, who do you work with? Okay, that's interesting. And what attribution models do you use? Who uses last click attribution model? Okay, who doesn't use any attribution model? Okay, that's good. And those who don't use last click, what do you guys use? Okay. Have you ever faced the problem that you use, if you use several attribution models at the same time, the attributed value that you get is actually more than you have earned? Nope. Because if you use several attribution models at the same time, you sum the attribution value. Okay, I'll go into that shortly. Have you been at the previous presentation of my colleague couple of talks before? Nope. It was about data combine and rule? Nope. Okay, so for the rest of you who weren't there, a couple of words about the company. We implement Google Analytics, also Google Analytics 360 for e-commerce businesses, and we work with the largest retailers in Russia and Ukraine, the companies that have more than 1 million transactions per week. We work closely with Google BigQuery and Google Cloud Platform, and we're Google partners in terms of Google Cloud and Google Analytics and working on Data Studio certification. And we are not agency. We don't do budget reallocation. We don't sell ads, and we just help customers and clients to make more sense out of data and to measure it properly. So, yep. What I'm going to tell you about. We'll talk a little bit about attribution models and what are the pros and cons of them. What are the goals of attribution, what we do it for. How can it be solved, and what will be the results if we do all that. So, as I said, I have a lot of experience working mostly with e-commerce businesses, and I'm sure you all shop online. So if you do that, you understand that before you make a purchase, you go to the website several times. 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. And actually, the more common the product is, gadgets or clothes, you'll visit the website, or your customers will visit your website several times. Benchmarking says that usually, it's less than 15% of the transactions that customers make from the first time they visit the website. And if you do user ID, and if you combine customer data from different devices, you'll see that number even lower. Because if you're using user ID, you understand that it's the same client on different devices. Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? Just in case. So who of you does the user ID and get the data from different devices in one system and can realize that it's the same client? Okay. Yay, at least a couple of people. So if we do that, we'll see that it's even less. That means that if we're using the last click attribution models, most of the sources that bring customer to the website are not even underestimated, they're not considered at all. You can check that if you open Google Analytics and you select transactions per session more than 0, and you select transaction per user more than 0, you'll see what share is only considered, like what share of your sessions is considered using last click attribution model. I know it's not, like you cannot see it pretty clear, but the presentation will be available after that, so you can go and check that. So if we use like individual attribution model for each channel, that's what people here like on the front seats were saying, that they use like combination of different channels. We'll face several problems. First, that the attributed budget is bigger than what we have earned. After that, the users in a channel are treated the same. And I mean, obviously the new users and returning customers, they behave differently and the probability of their conversion is different. It froze for some reason. Okay, just give me a second. Oh, there is no internet. Here we go. So if we're using different channels for different models for different channels, we also don't take into account the interference between channels. And I mean, it's obvious that there is interference between them. So for those who are using last click, I mean, a lot of companies, a lot of agencies use it as it's simple, as it's clear. But as I said earlier, it doesn't consider like more than 80% of sessions. There is another option, position-based attribution model that is available in J360, but it in regular J, I'm sorry, it attributes more than you have earned. There is assisted conversion approach, and it's also not perfect. And there is data-driven that's available in J360, but there is no clear and transparent attribution logic that you can check and be sure that it's attributed in the proper way. So, I mean, everyone says that it's better than last click, but how can you check? And in addition to that, you need to get a license that's more than $150,000 a year. So if we talk about attribution goals, what are they? First, what we need for attribution is to combine orders from different touch points. What I mean here, we spend money for advertising to get more traffic to our website. And after that, there are some users who make purchase online. But if we're talking about omni-channel, multi-channel retailers who have call centers or brick and mortar stores, there are also orders that were generated there. And if we talk at all sales that were generated by online activity, there is much more than we consider using Google Analytics and last click attribution model. Does anyone have a client who has physical stores, call centers? Okay, how do you deal with that?
We have to purchase and define an email that's open on a device, and we try to tie that back to site visits.
Where do you tie it back? Like, how do you combine it with data from the website?
It's our third-party tool we use.
Okay. What about rest, like who are raising hands? Do you consider that? No?
Consider, yes. Doing it, no.
Okay. What about you?
So yeah, the start it's our loss, obviously.
Uh-huh.
You can attribute it all, and the call center in general, I think that's contact. And it's attributed to the channel that that's contact because the leads in the sales all say where the lead came from.
Thanks for sharing. And if we think about that, you know, besides that offline orders, there are also orders that were made online but were canceled. We realized that we actually attribute the wrong amount of money because like the real sales were different. So in yellow, I don't know if you can see it well, but that's the part of data about sales that's available in Google Analytics. So that's about the first goal. The second goal is to evaluate the contribution of each session that led to a purchase, because we want to attribute and, you know, to benefit each of the sessions that were on the way to transaction. And standard attribution models, I'm not going to stop on them for a while. I'm sure you all know them. They take into account only the sequence of the traffic source, but they don't take into account what happened during the session and how the particular source helped customer move through the sales funnel. For instance, we have different scenarios, like all people are different, they all do different stuff during the sessions. And for instance, for the first time, the person came like from the first channel, didn't really do anything, left the website. After that, he came, visited the product page, and so far and so on. But there can be completely different scenario when customer came to the website for the first time, even added product to a cart. After that left, we bring him back with a retargeting or email, but he didn't do anything. And after that, he came and made a purchase. And there can be really like a bunch of scenarios like that. The main point here that we shouldn't be, really, we shouldn't really rely on the last click attribution, because the most difficult steps or the most important steps could be earlier on the sales funnel, and there could be different traffic sources that helped customer overcome them. So here, with the same sequence of session, the point of all that, the influence on the sales funnel and customer journey can be different. So if we go back, like here, you see the first time customer came, he didn't really do anything with the first source. And in another scenario, he almost made a purchase. And there can be a bunch of scenarios. The second important point that using the last click or standard attribution models, we don't consider offline orders mostly. I'm glad you do, at least trying to. We don't consider canceled orders, and the revenue is not actually considered. So we have the sales, but not the revenue. And it cannot be done with Google Analytics anyway, because Google Analytics is not the database. You cannot import all the data that you have and that you want to use for calculations in there. And another important point that a lot of us forget about is that Google Analytics, when we send data to Google Analytics, we use JavaScript, and sometimes it doesn't work. So the part of the order is just get lost on the way to Google Analytics. What can be done here, and what our clients who we work with, what they do. First, they collect data, all the data from the website in Google Analytics, and they import cost data so they can connect the sales to the costs that they've spent on advertising. After that, we help them, or they do that on their own. They import data in Google BigQuery. And Google BigQuery is a cool tool. Actually, I'm very surprised there is no talk about it today, because it allows you to process huge amounts of data very fast, like in seconds, and almost for free. I mean, if you're a small business, they provide you with 1 terabyte of data processing and storage. And I mean, a lot of people are okay with that. It's enough for them for data processing. They import data from their CRM or ERP system in there. And Google BigQuery is cool here because it has a bunch of ready-made APIs. So it's pretty easy. And if you're a small business and you don't really need real-time data reporting, you can just import data with CSV or JSON files in Google BigQuery. So you have all that there. You can combine real sales, online orders, canceled orders, order completion rate, call tracking system data if you use them. And after that, you can use Klipfolio or Tableau. They have connectors to Google BigQuery. Or again, if you're like, on a budget, you can use Google Sheets or Data Studio for data visualization, because they can be connected as a data source for Google BigQuery. Any maybe questions at this point?
Mm-hmm. So we are kind of like, we don't want to split it equally and count, because obviously our budget on PPC is on channels is allocated according to how effective it is. So how to kind of, in kind of noise of having so many channels in influencing one person, how to weight it, which channel is actually the influential one.
That's a good question, thank you. So the cool thing here that once you've imported all the data about costs, about customer behavior, and about sales in Google BigQuery, you're limited to one thing, to SQL knowledge, because like you work with data in Google BigQuery with SQL, and you can build any models that you want and try and compare the results. So you can play with it and see how it works for you. And if we're talking about Google Sheets, I mean, a lot of people work with it. There is an add-on that pulls data from Google BigQuery directly in Google Sheets for reporting and charts, and it even can be scheduled so you get like the reports on time for your colleagues. By the way, does anyone work with Google BigQuery or at least tried? Go ahead, because like seriously, when you sign up for Google BigQuery project, they give you a $300 credit, and you can just start and try how it works for you. So if we're talking and comparing all those attribution models, we say that last click is very transparent model and it's clear how it works, but it's not very accurate. If we're talking about data-driven model, people say that it's accurate, but it's not that transparent because nobody actually knows how it works. There is also true attribution that's very accurate, again, according to the people who used it, but not transparent and extremely expensive. And the approach I'm talking about today is funnel-based. It's accurate because we take into account the influence of each session on the sales funnel or on the actually customer journey inside the sales funnel. And it's transparent. You can go in and check how everything works and what's going on inside the model. Who has seen this report before? Okay, that's Enhanced E-commerce report in Google Analytics. Looking at it, we can, not looking at it, but using it and using data about this report, we can calculate the probability of the customer moving from one step of the sales funnel to another. So we say that, for instance, moving from one step to that step is bigger or lower than probability from moving from third step to the fourth step. I don't know if you can see the numbers pretty well, but we have here I'm showing the example of e-commerce store, but it can be customized to pretty much any business and any sales funnel. So we have 5 steps: visit, product page, add to cart, checkout, and transaction. 5 steps, and we have number of visitors, how they shred down from step to step. And based on these numbers, we calculate the probability. So as you see, 49 out of 100 is 49, 7.8 out of 49 is 16, and so far and so on. So we calculate the probability. And here we have a funnel. And after that, we set up the priority for each step. And we say that, for instance, transaction is obviously the most important step because we all want sales. And after that, you can say that the checkout is the second most important step. But for instance, if you know that customers who are on the checkout step will convert like 90%, it's not that important for you, right? So you'll give the higher priority to another step. And you can try setting up like several models, checking how it works, and again, what are the best numbers for you. So we set up the priority for each step. And based on these numbers, we calculate the value of the income that should be attributed to that particular source. So basically, the lower the probability and the higher the priority, the bigger will be the value that we attribute to that session. Is that clear, or should I repeat that once again?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here in blue we have the probability. Okay? And priority is the priority of the step. So if we want more sales, we'll give the first priority to the conversion. But if we want to attract customers who will buy in future, we also want to prioritize or to give high priority to the product page. That means that we'll give more value to the traffic sources that bring customers to the website and introduce customer to the product. And based on the probability and priority, we calculate the value. That means if the probability is low, that customer moves for that step, and if the priority is high, that particular session that helped customer overcome that step will get the highest value. Better now? No? Okay. Anyway, you can ask me after that and I'll can show some graphs and explain it better. So we've calculated all of that. What's next? Froze again. we go. So, okay, we've done all that. What's next? That's the way you can check, that's the interface, what was the value, or actually the share of value that was attributed to that particular source. So here you can see that there was a transaction with a certain number and with a product in it, and you can see what was the first time customer came and visited that product page, or just the category where he was introduced to that product, what was the source and medium for that session, what was the device for it, and you can go and check. I mean, you won't check that for every transaction, obviously, but that's the way you can make sure that everything is calculated the way you expected it to be. How would you use that? Like, what are the outcomes? So we built the table in Google Sheets where you can see the source, medium, and campaign that you want to compare. And we have costs for each of them. And after that, we have attributed revenue. So here in this column, you see the attributed revenue according to Google Analytics. But as I said, if we calculate that in Google BigQuery, we can take into account offline orders. And obviously, the attributed revenue will be bigger because, there were more orders. So we calculate ROAS based on these numbers. And obviously, again, the ROAS for approach with offline orders will be bigger. So we normalized the values to compare, the same values. And calculated the ROAS difference and monetary difference. This way, we can compare and see what are the sources that are underestimated and overestimated. What does it give you? Basically, you can increase your sales, not increasing the advertising budget. So here is the same table, just visualized, and we see that, for instance, these 3 campaigns were underestimated and these were overestimated. And you can take the budget that you had for the first 3 campaigns and reallocate them to the last 2 campaigns. According, again, to our experience and benchmarking, that you can reallocate about like 20 to 30% of your advertising budget. And I mean, for small companies, it's not that big, but still, I mean, that's 20-30%. Please note that everything is estimated based on the probability. So we know what's the probability of customer moving to the next step. Second, we make that on segments. So we calculate the probability for new and returning customers for different categories because they're very different. For instance, if the customer came to buy a refrigerator and if the customer came to buy headphones, that's very different, right? Okay, so the next thing is that the value that we attribute is attributed to the sessions and not to the marketing channel because everything happens inside of the session. And we attribute the share of revenue, but not, the share of value, but not the revenue. So you don't have to show the real numbers. You can basically, just multiply that for yourself and have the real numbers. Here is an interesting thing, sure, thanks. So if you use last click model, you can see that you'll have very unbalanced funnel that most of the sessions will be here on the last step. But if you don't have everything here, what you're gonna convert? And if we talk about balanced funnel, when everything is in harmony, you'll have enough customers on each step to move them forward so they can flow through the sales funnel. Important question is how to use all that. First, you can use and spend your budget more effectively. Second, sorry, I missed that one. So I've said before that the segmentation is based on cohorts. And if we talk about new users and returning users, they will be different. So you can build separate attribution for new users. You can attribute not only segments, but products. Andrei was talking about that today earlier. And continuing the data studio subject that was right before this speech, you can use all this data collected in Google BigQuery to build like not only Google Sheets, but really like pretty actionable dashboards for your colleagues. I've already covered that partially, but again, why Google BigQuery is a good thing and you should go and try it soon or ASAP. No licenses, no service, like you don't have to support your own servers. No additional software, you just go enter your credit card, get the free $300 credit and try using it. It uses data from Google Analytics. If you're a GA360 client, you can use just the standard export, or you can pull your data from API and send it into Google BigQuery, or you can ask us how to do that and we'll show you the quick way. Another thing, there is like a simple and quick integration with third-party services and visualization tools. It's safe and secure. Like for instance, you cannot send your customer phone numbers in Google Analytics or their credit card information, and you can send all that in Google BigQuery. So yeah, give it a try. What will be the recommendations if you want, to consider all that and use the data that your client has? Is check the share of orders. Remember, I was showing that in the beginning. You'll find that in the presentation. Set up enhanced e-commerce so you can see that report with steps and probabilities. Evaluate ROI and ROAS. By the way, how many of you does that? Okay. Okay. And work on spending your budget like in the most efficient way you can. There are some relevant links that you'll be able to find in the presentation later. Thanks for listening, and I'm ready to answer your questions if you have any.